in Spain in the 12 and 1300s being translated into Latin, and they're now meeting Aristotle in Latin. They're meeting Galen. They're meeting Euclid. They're meeting all these old Greek texts, plus some of the newer Arab philosophers tacked on, like Ibn Rushd. Averroes, his Muslim name was Ibn Rushd. And so Dante mentions these people. He puts them in the highest circle of hell. You can't put them in paradise or purgatory because they're not Christian, but he gives them the best circle of hell to live in. And you can read the Divine Comedy. They're all mentioned. So he knows about them all. And their names have already moved into Italy. So there come the conclusion, very simple conclusion. It's the encounter with the Muslims, not only in the Crusades in the Middle East, but even more in Spain, that triggers the humanistic revival in Italy, the scholastic synthesis of Aquinas and Petrarch and these other people, Petrarch, the humanism, Aquinas, the scholastic synthesis, is totally based on Islamic Arabic philosophical texts that they had brought in from Spain, and then finally triggered the Renaissance. So the Western Renaissance was triggered by the encounter with the Muslim culture of Spain, and to some extent the Crusades, but the Crusades were just that. I have one text in there, Usama, a Muslim view of the Crusaders, which for the Muslims, the Crusaders were just a bunch of rough thugs, roughnecks who, and honestly, I'll be truthful about it, I'm hurrying here because I want to get as much in as I can, who farted a lot, you know, who were only interested in the brothels and things like that, and whose table manners were horrible, and who had no elegance and absolutely no culture. And the picture the Muslims give of the creators is a little biased, but I'm sure it's fairly accurate. It's one of basically a bunch of uncivilized, uncultured, warlike brutes that have descended on them. And it's in your collection. At the very end here, it's you can read it. I'm not sure when I get a little time for it, but it's called Usama, a Muslim View of the Crusaders. It's hard for me to find this stuff here because there's no index here, but hopefully you'll find it. If you want a good laugh, read that. That's a very funny picture. And I often, if I have more time, I haven't missed a lot of classes at the beginning, I read that to my classes because I find that to be extremely funny. Now, okay, so the situation in Spain had a large effect on what happened culturally in Europe thereafter. The contact with this very high Muslim culture, which after the coming of the Almohads and Almoravids was suppressed in southern Spain. So it wasn't long before all of Spain fell under Muslim control in the final conquest of Granada in 1485. Granada fell, and then the Inquisition was brought into play to ferret out lukewarm Christians, to ferret out people who were still secret Muslims and secret Jews. And that's a perfectly horrendous period. It goes on for a couple of 100 years and has marred and marked Spanish culture up to the present day. Also, the behavior of Spain and Latin America has been marred by that. And the whole encounter of Spanish with the New World had that as part of it, and it's been a very gruesome, ugly history. I frankly don't understand how anyone can get any feeling of inspiration or comfort out of any of it. The treatment of the Mexican rulers in Teotihuacan in Mexico, the treatment of the Inca rulers, the Aztec rulers in Teotihuacan in Mexico, and also in their capital city, I forget what it was called, the capital,
Techichuan.
Yeah, whatever it was called. It was horrendous. The devastation, the disease, the killing, everything was just horrendous. Peru is beyond imagination what a small army of the havoc a small army of Spaniards wreaked there, and also the repression thereafter, based to some extent on the Inquisition and so on. It's beyond my comprehension how anyone from Latin America or further south is able to live with this history in any sort of equanimity. It's just a frightening sort of history that I wouldn't even be able to contemplate if I came out of those areas. It's something beyond my comprehension. Never mind, that's as far as we'll go in that direction. I promised you I would do the Shiites. I I do want to do the Shiites. Now, the Shiites, I said, for a while under the Abbasids, it looked like the Abbasids were making an effort to conciliate the Shiites. And so I mentioned that one Abbasid caliph who had two sons, he was called Al-Mansur, and he succeeded his brother Ja'far. And these were the first Abbasid caliphs. And these were called Al-Ma'mun and Al-Amin. And I don't know what the problem was between them, was some problem, but this is in the early 800s. You know, 820s or so. And for a time, the historians tell us there were 3 or 4 translation houses, as I told you, operating side by side, translating Greek and other Western manuscripts from the time of the flourishing of Greco-Roman culture into Arabic. All of Plato, all of Aristotle, all of the scientists, all of the geography, Euclid, everything else was translated into Arabic in Baghdad at this time, particularly under Al-Ma'mun. And he was the one who had some relationship with the Shiite imam to try to sort of amalgamate the Abbasid with the Shiite imam. It didn't work out for some reason. And this is where you get a sort of breaking point too in Shiite history. So let's just look at that before we move totally over to the cultural sphere. So I want you to read for next time. I think we should look at probably the pre-Islamic Bedouin Arab poetry. So look at the various chapters of your book. There's one missing here. I don't know what happened to it. I'll have to bring that in myself and read it to you from that. But in terms of the imams, the Shiite imams, you know, the first is Ali, of course. We know what happened to him. Then Hassan. He more or less peaceful life, died in his bed, but he wasn't very aggressive or anything. He was in retirement in Medina. He was on a pension. But Hussein was different. Hussein did lead a group up at the time of Muawiyah's death, and as we know, was slaughtered by the Umayyad police in approximately 680. So he died 661. He died 680. So we're already into 3 imams. They're all considered